Welcome to Heartline, conversations with healthcare changemakers following their heartline. I'm your host, Dr. Andrea Austin. I'm an emergency medicine physician, coach, and educator. I believe that healthcare needs to improve the quality care that patients receive and that supporting the workers is at the heart of this transformation. It is so wonderful today to have Dr. Laura Suttin with me. She's a board-certified family physician, certified coach, consultant, and an author and speaker, along with being an entrepreneur. She completed her medical training at McGovern Medical School in Houston and her residency at Christus Spohn Memorial Family Medicine Residency Program in Corpus Christi, Texas. She also received her MBA from the University of Texas at Dallas in 2016. Dr. Suttin began working with a coach many years ago and found it so life-changing that she became a coach herself. She is certified through both the Physician Coaching Institute and the Insight Coaching Community. She launched Purposeful MD in 2021 with the mission of empowering physicians to create the lives they love without guilt. In her spare time, she enjoys running, completing triathlons, traveling, and glamping with her family in their travel trailer. She lives in San Antonio with her husband and their 4 children, and I have a copy of her book, and we are book twins. Our book came out on the same day. Congratulations. Great to have you, Laura.
Thanks. It's good to talk to you.
Well, we like to start with our opening question. What's your doctor origin story?
Yeah, so I'm the first in my family to go into medicine or to be a physician. My grandmother was a nurse. I loved when I was very young, like elementary school, I really loved science, but not just any type of science, but really understanding about the body and how it works, so kind of the physiology component. And then I loved connecting with other people. I just loved it so much. And so I thought, well, what better way to do both of those things than to be a doctor and study science, study the human body, and work with people every single day. So, yeah.
All right. So that led you to medicine. And what's your day-to-day like now?
So right now, I'm not practicing. I'm exploring a couple avenues to get back into that, which is really exciting for me. Something I've missed. So I am a full-time entrepreneur now. I took that jump about almost a year ago now. So May of 2024. And so my day-to-day, no 2 days look the same. It's a combination of coaching, working on my content, whether that's my podcast or speaking engagements, reaching out to people to share with them what I do, podcasting. So, and being on other people's podcasts, I still love connecting with other incredible people. And so I make time in my day for that. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything these days, which I love. It's fun. I love that there are no 2 days that are the same.
So tell us a little bit about the Purposeful MD and your unique perspective on the role of coaching and flourishing in medicine.
So as you mentioned in my bio, I started working with a coach a little over 10 years ago. It was assigned to me as part of an executive leadership program that I was in. And I say assigned to me that I think there's a lot of different tangents we could go off here, but I see coaches kind of, the joke is get voluntold to get coached, right? And so, but I was a part of a cohort of physician leaders within my organization, and part of it was to work with an executive coach. And actually, this is still somebody that I work with today, so she's phenomenal. But I'd never been coached. I didn't really know what it was. I had been in therapy, so I knew what therapy was, but I didn't quite understand the concept of coaching and how it could help me. I remember thinking, well, I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. And so I was a little bit skeptical, like, how is this person going to help me? But through the process of getting coached, I realized how I was getting in my own way, and not that was something I needed to feel shameful for, but just how much of our training as physicians it can hinder us when we want to become leaders. And I was actually talking with a client about this a week or so ago, somebody who is really transitioning from full-time practice to now becoming a leader and still practicing. And he was telling me, like, yeah, nobody taught us this stuff. And And so I validated that. Absolutely. Nobody taught us this stuff. And we were almost taught the opposite. I mean, it was a very self-sacrificing, self-centered, and I don't mean self-centered in like necessarily a negative way, but we were really kind of taught to look out for ourselves when we were in our training. And those thoughts, those beliefs, that mentality is going to hinder us when we're trying to work with teams and get things done. So working with her, I realized how my beliefs were holding me back. At the same time, I was going through a divorce of my daughter's dad. And so I was just really having this kind of identity crisis, questioning a lot of things that were going on. And so it was so powerful for me to see the impact of coaching and what I was able to achieve as a result of working with her. I started working with other physicians more of in an informal coaching and mentoring capacity. And then a colleague of mine about 5-6 years later mentioned to me that she was becoming a coach and was getting a certification. I didn't know that was a thing. And I remember thinking, oh, I can go to school for that. And as somebody who's always loved school and still does, I looked into what it would mean for me to be a coach and to get the certification, bring my skills to the organization that I was working with at the time, which I did, and coach within the organization. But then also realized I wanted to have a bigger impact. And so that led me to start my own business.
Wow, such an inspiring story. And I think there's still a lot of people that I think are coaching curious. And, I think physicians, some of it is, we've been in school so long. And so it's like, why would I do this other thing? And I also think there's a feeling, and maybe with younger physicians, like I have student loan debt. Like, why would I even consider getting a coach or spending money on myself? And maybe there's some resentment around, the system already extracted a lot from me. Why would I do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I hear that a lot. And I mean, I felt this too. I felt like this is a huge time commitment. And I was actually on a call earlier today within my coaching community. And what came up was people don't really want coaching, right? Mm. People want the transformation that is brought about by coaching, right? Like, I don't necessarily want to work with a personal trainer, but I want the transformation that comes with working with a personal trainer. And I might not necessarily, I might get uncomfortable during the time that I'm at the gym doing squats, doing deadlifts, those types of things. But that discomfort is necessary and it's part of my growth. It's part of my getting physically stronger. I see coaching in a very similar way, and that it can be uncomfortable, and yet that discomfort is necessary in any facet of our life, whether or not somebody works with a coach or not. There is some level of discomfort that is necessary for us to grow. And coaching will help in all aspects of life. So I noticed this for myself. I mean, I was working with this coach really from a business medical leadership perspective, but the insights that I had throughout the process helped me in my personal life. And so if we can kind of either learn a new language, learn some new skills, kind of develop these insights about ourselves and things that we can do, not that we need to improve. It's not like we're deficient and we're trying to, meet expectations or anything like that. But how can we really grow and flourish into the people that we are truly meant to be? What are some of the ways that we might be holding ourselves back? Where might we need to make some decisions about environments that we're in, people that are in our life? And so coaching is really about how can I get to that future state that I want to get to? And that's what I say with new clients that I bring on is this is really about possibility. And this is about what do you want to create with your life and how can I help you to get there? I think a lot of us have dreams, have visions, have goals, and we get stuck telling ourselves, well, I can't do it, or it's not possible, or that's for other people. And coaching is really about helping us to question those beliefs and just explore together and start to take action towards what we want.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that we're seeing more uptake of coaching. And, I think the best case scenario is organizations investing in coaching and that it becomes a benefit associated with working in medicine, because the truth is we've got some really big problems. And all throughout the day when I'm working in the hospital, there's a lot of inertia, a lot of, well, this is just the way it has to be. And I think the coaching mindset allows you to start to ask more questions. What's the why behind that? Is there another organization that, is having the same problem, and how have they tackled it? And so it allows a lot more of that expansive thinking. And I mean, we need that right now in healthcare.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. I think there's a lot more uptake within organizations, and I'm beginning to work with organizations too who are recognizing that their physician burnout is a problem and it's costing them money, and reaching out to me to say, hey, can you help me and coach these physicians so that we can keep them. And it's not about, we want to keep them happy and keep them satisfied so that they stay, and just kind of keep them as a cog in the wheel. But really, how do we help our physicians to thrive and flourish? Because that's when great things happen. And I know you know this, there's so much data now, peer-reviewed data, that shows the positive return on investment for organizations that invest in physician coaching. And that's not just at an organizational level, it's at a personal level too. I mean, I've invested a lot of money. I've still work with a coach, and it's an investment, and it's allowed me to grow in ways that exceed the money that I paid. And so it's invaluable. It really is. And so I love to see that organizations are starting to recognize how incredibly helpful this can be for their physician community, for their patients. I mean, again, data shows that the physicians who work with coaches have better patient outcomes. So this is not just like a woo-woo, like kind of this, there's real evidence behind this, peer-reviewed JAMA articles, Mayo Clinic. So we know that coaching works.
So a lot of listeners may be thinking about doing an MBA, and we've had Dr. Cheryl Martin, one of my close friends, just finished her MBA in 2024. What's your take on if a physician should get an MBA? And then let's start there. And then I have another question about your insights related to how the MBA impacts your understanding of the healthcare system.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. And I would ask if anybody's curious about that, please, I'm happy to have a conversation. I think it's very individual. I can tell you my experience with it. So I got my MBA in 2016. So at the time that I started it, again, was around this time that I was becoming a physician leader. And two of the leaders within my organization, actually 3 of the leaders within my organization, but one was my direct superior and then his superior, both went through this program that I went through for my master's, and recommended it in general, and thought that it would be a good experience for me to go through. I was also very fortunate that my organization sponsored financially the majority of my coursework. And so that was amazing. I don't think I would have done it had it not been for that. I'm very grateful for that. And that they sponsored both the time, the travel for me, and the tuition for the majority of it.
Wow.
So yeah, very, very grateful on that. And at the time, I didn't know what my path was going to be. I was really thinking that I wanted to be a chief medical officer somewhere, and that turned out to not be my path, which is fine. But I think the MBA, I mean, if that were my path, I think the MBA absolutely would have been helpful. I don't know if it's as helpful in what I'm doing right now, but it has opened my eyes in a lot of different ways to really just everything that goes on outside of healthcare, or outside of the kind of physician space within healthcare. So for instance, one of our courses was on healthcare policy, and we went to DC for a week, met with congressmen, and really learned some of met with lobbyists, learned some of the inner workings of how policies are made within the government. And that information is still really impactful to me, not just in the healthcare space, but personally, as I think about how am I going to advocate for this cause that really matters to me. So, and I have some friends who are lobbyists, and they agree that calling your representatives is really the best way. So that's my plug for that. Call your representatives. So experience that I gained there, the knowledge has been helpful for me. But I don't know. I wouldn't say that an MBA is necessary for everybody. I think it really depends on what the person wants to do, how they want to use it. I don't think it's a substitute for a real world experience. So I think if it's I feel like I need an MBA to go this route, then you kind of have to look, and is that true or is that not true? Or is the MBA kind of are you using the MBA to put off doing something else that might be more valuable for you? So it's a really individual conversation. So it depends.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing there is it would be great to have coaching around that topic, because I think a lot of us see, probably something to reflect on is if you're feeling bored, frustrated, like I can't do my clinical role anymore. What are you hitching your wagon to something like, okay, I'm going to get this degree and then everything's going to be great. That arrival fallacy, and then the imposter syndrome and perfectionism that's so prevalent in medicine. So I've seen that pattern so many times, and we're really conditioned to, I must have another degree, another merit badge to do this thing I want. And, in some circumstances, the degree may be very important, but I think fully exploring that with a coach that, if you're using somebody that's certified and has the ethical framework, doesn't have any conflicts of interest, that's the safe space to explore that question.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I've seen that in my clients that, well, maybe I should just go back to school and get another degree or MPH or whatever that looks like. And so we really have to kind of dig through what's underlying that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned something earlier that I want to come back to. You said you were thinking about maybe adding some clinical medicine back into the mix. Is that something you can share with us, or just even kind of the wave top or 30,000 foot view on that?
Yeah. So I get a lot of folks ask me, and I had somebody ask me this the other day, is do you miss seeing patients? And so my answer to that question is yes, I do miss seeing patients. I don't miss the type of practice that I was involved in. And again, I was in a very supportive environment related to it. So it was a managed care environment, and there's a lot of, that can be a kind of a very charged topic nowadays. But I was very lucky that we were able to spend a lot of time with our patients. And so it was more about patient outcomes and not so much about, I got to churn through 40 patients a day type of thing. So I am grateful for that environment. At the same time, there were a lot of challenges. I mean, administrative burden, patient messages, the fact that we were kind of this medical home for patients meant we had to do a lot of care coordination. And we didn't have a lot of the support that we needed to get it done. So it was hard. And I don't miss that piece. I do miss talking with patients, helping patients. And so I've really been, just over the past few months, really trying to think about how I can do that in a way that aligns with my values and aligns with what fits within my life right now. And I'm exploring some avenues to do that. So the other piece that's really meaningful for me is medical mission work. I've done quite a bit over the past few years, and I still want to be able to do that. And so yeah, keeping some form of medical practice is something that I'm welcoming back into my life.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful, because when you look at the demand on the healthcare system right now, and what's going to happen over the next decade, I was not kind of joking, kind of not joking with a colleague last night. Like, do we really think Ozempic is going to save us from the diabetes crisis in the United States? It's paying Peter to pay Paul. Essentially, I'm just very concerned in the next decade about the aging population, the complexity of disease, and everyone needs to make their own decisions. But at the end of the day, we have an amazing skill set. And so if we can find opportunities to align physicians with work that's in line with their values, boundaries, and priorities, I really think that's going to be so important for the health of our country, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, there's a lot of talk about, well, We don't want to be encouraging physicians to leave practice and we need to kind of maintain our workforce. And so I absolutely agree. I'm not all about stop practicing and start your own business and, all these other things. At the same time, we have to do what matters to us. And when we can create the spaces in our life, I think, I hear that a lot from physicians, and I'm sure you do too, is what you were saying before, kind of this helplessness about, well, I can't change it. I can't do anything about it. And yet if we have that mentality, then we become victims, we become helpless. And when we can really intentionally create spaces and create opportunities for ourselves where we can practice living out our values, then everybody benefits. The physicians benefit, the patients benefit. And so I've seen more and more examples of that over the past few years. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Well, I've got your book here. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your book. And there's quite a few books out there written by physicians. What's unique about your book? What inspired and excited you to write one?
Yeah. So the book is called The Purposeful MD, Creating the Life You Live Without Guilt. And Purposeful MD is my business. I didn't really think I was going to write a book just with everything going on in my life, my full-time job, raising a teenager, my business, COVID, of course. And yet I really found that I enjoyed writing. I started doing a little bit of internal blogging for the company that I worked with. I did about a once a week blog. And I found that it was really kind of cathartic and helpful for me to process the things that was on my mind. And then I was also getting some good feedback on it. Like people were saying, this is so helpful. Thank you so much. And so it was kind of this, oh, I enjoy this and it helps other people. So I'm working with my coach at the time. I thought, I really want to create a book, create something that is meaningful to other people. And so kind of with the help of writing coaches and editors, of course, turned my blogs and thoughts and stories and client stories into a book. And it was a labor of love, as I know you know this as well, having recently written a book too. But it's been a really great journey, and just to hold it in my hand and to hear from people that it's helpful for them. That's really why I did it. It was to share a little bit about what I've learned, some of the challenges that I've had, and to help people realize, one, that they're not alone and that there are things about their circumstances that they can change, but it does require action. So, and it's a short book. I mean, it's meant to be digested pretty quickly and you can go back to it. And each chapter has some action steps and some journaling prompts. And then I also, on my website, there's a downloadable version of the journal. So if somebody wants to, have something that they can print out and take with them. So it's really about kind of learning, why does my brain move towards the negative? Why do I have these thoughts? Why is it hard for me to set boundaries? All of these things. And then, okay, now what are you going to do with that learning? Because and we talked before, I love learning. I love reading. And the most helpful books for me have been when I can take that learning and apply it and take action in a certain way, because that's how we grow. So that's the intent of the book. And also, again, just to share, I have struggled with these things. I tell very personal stories. I tell some stories of clients, and I'm still learning all of these things. I wrote a social media post that's going to go out tomorrow where I was recently recording the audio version of my book. And in the re-recording, or the recording of it as I was rereading it, and I really hadn't read it kind of cover to cover. I don't know what your experience was, but the editing process, at no point did I read it cover to cover. So reading it and then saying it out loud, I just realized oh man, I've forgotten some of this stuff. And it's okay. And I'm reminding myself now, yeah, I have been getting angry about things that I can't control, and how can I work with that anger and have compassion for myself, because we're all going to stumble. I mean, just because I wrote a book on it, I'm certainly not an expert. it just means that I'm learning right along everybody else. So yeah, it's been it was kind of funny that I was recording it. And I thought, this is good timing because I feel like I've forgotten a lot about what I wrote about. So I need those reminders.
Yeah, it's quite the experience. I ended up reading my book cover to cover as well. And yeah, everyone is so complex, right? And so sometimes the reaction people have, they're like, you've had a lot of things happen. And I'm like, oh, have I? Really? Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah. We're all our version of an onion with a lot of layers.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we're in a new year. It's 2025. I think this is another good question for a coach. There's probably a fair number of people that set resolutions. And here we are in February, and they're like, oh gosh, F it. Like, I didn't lose that 10 pounds. I'm back to whatever, thing that I wanted to not be doing. And we're in the doldrums of winter. What would be your advice to somebody that is maybe feeling down on themselves and feeling like, here I am and nothing's changed in February?
Yeah, I see this a lot. I'm sure you do too, in your clients and in your patients. And I actually did a podcast episode on this because it's so common. And I think we're probably coming up on, like, there's a day in February where everybody just, they've stopped doing whatever their habit that they committed to was on their resolutions. Yeah. New Year's resolutions are funny. I think at least what brought it home for me is people were asking me, like, what's your New Year's resolution? What's your New Year's resolution years ago? And I would set them, and then, like a lot of people, I wouldn't keep them. And then I thought, why am I setting myself up for failure? I'm just not going to set them anymore. And then people would ask me, what's your resolution? And I was like, I don't have one. And it wasn't so much about like, well, screw it, I'm just never going to try to improve. It was just that I wasn't using January 1st as an arbitrary kind of, I'm going to wake up on January 1st and everything's going to be amazing. I think what people forget is you're the same person on January 1st that you were on December 31st. And you're the same person on January 2nd, right? And so when we have any habit change that we want to make, unless we really question the thoughts that we're telling ourselves, the beliefs that we have about ourselves, about the habit, about our environment, really dig into that, then those habits are really, really difficult to sustain. And it doesn't just happen with January 1st. I mean, I hear it with people, well, my diet starts on Monday. It's Super Bowl. We're coming up on Super Bowl Sunday. I'll eat healthy on Monday kind of thing. And those decisions are really arbitrary. And so why not start a new habit on a Thursday? What's so wrong with starting a new habit on a Thursday? So we can set ourselves up for failure when we just magically assume that things are going to be different. And with any habit change, we really have to be intentional about it. We have to create the environment that sets us up for success, whether that's buying the running shoes or, not buying sugary snacks if we don't want to have them in the house, or joining the gym or actually going to the gym, whatever that habit change is, that if we don't set ourselves up for success, then it doesn't just happen. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, as we wind down today, how can our listeners connect with you?
So the best way is through my website. It's thepurposefulmd.com, all one word. So the Purposeful Medical Doctor, Purposeful MD. I'm also on LinkedIn as myself, Laura Suttin. I'm on Facebook as myself, Laura Suttin, and my podcast as well, Purposeful MD Podcast.
I love it. And what are you excited about in 2025?
So lots of different things. I've got some cool things lined up for my business, reaching more physicians, my audiobook coming out. Yeah, I'm excited about all those things.
Awesome. And we always like to expand our listeners' conference repertoire. Are there any in-person events that you'll be going to in 2025?
So I am actually sponsoring, I have an exhibit table at one in March in Dallas called Accreditation Commission for Healthcare. And I think that's the only one I have so far. My travel calendar is a little bit in flux just because there's some there's some unknowns within our family. My daughter's going off to college in the fall. And so I have to kind of finalize some of the things around that before I commit to anything else. So I would love to know if you're going to be at any, or if you know of any good ones.
Yeah, I'm very excited for AWEP. We're having our retreat in Costa Rica in February. The American Medical Women's Association, AMWA. I'll be at the Burnout Roundtable, and I'll be at that conference the last weekend in March in Boston. It's my first time going to that, and I'm just really impressed with the lineup and super excited to get more involved with AMWA. And then, I think another good conference that I've attended and a lot of the guests on the show have been to is the Women in Medicine Summit. If you haven't been, I would highly recommend it. It's in Chicago in September at the Drake, and it's just a really beautiful venue. So yeah, I'm going to try to travel a little bit less this year, but even with me saying that, my dance card is starting to fill up. But, I think it's a push and a pull. So yeah, well, it's been great having you on the show. And, for anybody who's listening that's coaching curious, reach out to Dr. Suttin and, then try something new in 2025.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening to Heartline, conversations with healthcare changemakers following their heartlines. I'd so appreciate it if you could take a quick moment and hit the like button and also the subscribe button that you'll find within your podcast app or platform that you're listening on. It also really helps if you can leave a review. I would certainly appreciate a 5-star review and a few comments about what you liked about this podcast. Don't forget, you can also forward this to people in your network. People love getting new podcasts and changing up what they're listening to. So sending a podcast to a friend or colleague, or even to start a conversation about a change that needs to happen in your organization, is a great way to be a change maker. This podcast represents the views of the host and guests. It does not represent the views of any entity we work for or with. It is also for informational use only and does not replace any professional advice, including medical or psychological. If you are interested in unlocking your true potential, reach out to me. If you're an organization interested in supporting the well-being of your people, I'd love to connect on innovative solutions. Schedule a strategy session at AndreaAustinMD.com. Sound editing services are provided by Better Podcasting Services, and you can find their website at betterpodcastingservices.com. And I'd also like to thank our future Dr. Caitlin Din, who is the production assistant for this podcast.